Hi, Latinos and clinical researchers. This is Ashley Margo. We're here with Judy Galindo and Dr. Danawi. So we're really excited to, talk a little bit about its background. Really appreciative for those of you that are here today, but also for those of you that are watching in the future. If you like it, please like, comment, subscribe, and also make sure to please share this video with people all over because we really want to spread the word on everything that Dr. Danawi is doing. But we're going to go ahead and shift it over. So, Doctor, if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself and give us a little bit about your background.
Sure. Hi, Ashley. Thank you so much. Hi, Judy. Good evening, everyone. I know it's, depending on where you are in the US, but it's evening time. So, my name is Hadi, first name Hadi, Danawi, last name. It's a pleasure to be here with you, and thank you for taking this opportunity to really talk to me. I'm an epidemiologist by training. I've graduated from the School of Public Health, UT School of Public Health in Houston, Texas. Gosh, now that I'm thinking of it, 20 years ago, 21 years ago to be more exact. And and as soon as I graduated, I actually joined Johnson and Johnson back then, um, and I worked with pharmacovigilance with them, and then I transferred over to global clinical trial management, and then I moved to academia where I actually developed and designed and taught online clinical trial courses for online degrees with higher institution, academic institutions in the US, more specifically in the US. And I served for many years on IRB boards in the Houston metropolitan, area slash Texas Medical Center here in Houston, Texas, on HIV-related clinical trials, where I was actually leading the board, reviewing and approving protocols and amendments, investigational brochures, and different updates, ICF, the informed consent forms, and some the different revisions, and as well as I actually sat on the data monitoring safety board as well. So having this background with pharmacovigilance, that was actually very handy. So I kept my feet wet with both academia and the industry, which was exciting to say the least, throughout the years. Um, and recently, I'm finding myself more getting towards the DEI initiatives and the FDA guidances, and it's very, very exciting. I'm very passionate about being involved in DEI. And what happened lately, or the way I got more involved, is that I got to know you, I got to know Monica, I got to know Dan. And there was a lot of buzz in the industry and around our groups, especially on LinkedIn as well. Around on the diversity. So, and we talk about diversity with, African Americans and with Latinos, even with Sikhs and other groups, but there was hardly ever any buzz or any reference to Arabs or Arab Americans in the US. So this is where I felt that there is a true need, a sincere, dear need, to actually really be at least vocal about inclusion and about the expansion and the inclusion of Arab Americans in the U.S. at least in clinical trials. I mean, I know there's a lot of talks with Pfizer and all regarding probably including or designing and implementing some clinical trials and clinical research in the Arab country, probably in Saudi Arabia and Dubai. It's all talks right now. There's nothing on the grounds. But at least let's start in the US. And that's something we can definitely be vocal about, right? Especially with your group, with other groups, the gurus and, clinical research. So I thought, you know what? I'm going to be vocal about that. Nobody has ever talked about how we can expand and include and create and raise awareness within the Arab American community. And just to give you an example, I know, Ashley, you're from Austin, I live in Houston. Just in the Houston metropolitan area, and I've actually probably shared this before, that we have a huge influx of Arab
Mhm,
immigrants just
mhm,
into the Houston area from Iraq, Syria, Egypt, Lebanon, you name it, Yemen.
mhm,
Uh, so, and nobody has ever tapped into this, resource. I mean, it's a very valuable resource for me. There's a lot of lack of awareness, lack of a model role in this community. Nobody has ever tapped into it, or created awareness, or reached out, or tried to actually design or implement any community assessment or community reach out. So we can talk about that in more detail. So this is how I came into this, like knowing that there's a gap. I identify the gap. I know that there's a gap because I live in it. I see it. I talk to people. I'm very active with the grassroots organizations in the Houston area, just to say the least. And I see nothing going on, or nothing is happening in this area of ours.
Hmm.
About expansion and inclusion of minorities in general, and diversity in clinical trials, and more specifically when it comes to Arab Americans. So this is how this whole idea came about. Just let's create an Arab board for clinical research. Why not? I mean, it's a viable, I identify the gap. It's a viable, research idea, and, a business idea. So it all actually started as an arm under my NGO. I have a 501, 501c3 organization, a federal tax exempt in the US with chapters internationally, and I also have an S corporation. So it all started as I want to create awareness under my NGO. Let's do that, and I have some people serving on the NGO, and then slowly it just shifted focus. Slowly it got more traction. Slowly people started proposing, why don't I create an Arab American recruitment vendor? It's like, oh, okay. So one thing leads to another, right?
Yeah.
So I'm not saying that I'm all over the board. It's just that we have a lot of ideas that we're hoping to materialize, like slowly but surely down the road. We're taking it one step at a time. We want to create and raise awareness at this point, and we want to match the Arab community, or at least those immigrants coming from 22 different Arab countries from the Middle East and North Africa. We call them MENA region, Middle East
Hmm.
and North Africa. So we have 22 countries, and people are immigrating to the US from these countries. We have three major cities in the US. We have Dearborn, Michigan. We have Houston, Texas. We have LA, California. Don't forget New York metropolitan area, New
Hmm.
York City, the boroughs. So we have major three or four clusters, let's say, in the US, and Houston is one of them. So it's like, yeah, let's start somewhere, right?
Yeah.
Um, I'm a one-man show, but I'm having more interest and traction, and people like wanting to serve on this board right now, which is amazing, right? I mean, we can just do so much, and we can just invite people, and I'm hoping, and I have big plans, and I'm very excited about this, to be honest with you. And I cannot do it all by myself. I need you. I need Monica. I need Dan. I need everyone. I need Aman from the Seas. You name it. I mean, so, and again, we all talk, I guess last week, was it last week?
Hmm.
Um, we had this consortium meeting that we're all thinking about probably creating this big consortium where we all come under this umbrella to serve on new initiatives in clinical research. And Jessica has been amazing in this, endeavor. And diversity is one big theme under this, consortium. So
Hmm.
we can definitely do something all together. I'm very, very passionate about this idea right now. I mean, everybody's talking about diversity, right? We just need to
Hmm.
actually have some agenda and some real themes that say, and put them on the ground, and just have to actually have an actionable, and deliverable items that we can work on. So this is where this is where I come from. So I come from a mixed, collaboration from industries, from the industry and academia, and I'm
Hmm.
finding myself really going full force into what we call DEI and diversity in clinical research. I hope
Thank you
this
so
answer
much
is this
for.
long.
No,
I hope
yeah.
this
Yeah,
long
that's
That's
answer.
amazing.
It was very amazing. It's a lot. I mean, I love it though. That lets us know
Yeah,
that you have a really great diverse background, but you're also doing everything you can to really make
sure,
your imprint to help the
sure.
community. And ultimately, I think that that's what this industry needs. It's not just,
Right,
the same organizations. We need more. We need new, different perspectives so that the approaches are different and potentially
right.
help more, right?
Right. So,
Um,
so Ashley, Yeah, I don't need to interrupt you. I just wanted to say, like, I mean, we're all, minorities, right? And we're
Mhm,
serving minorities. uh, but probably the basic premise is the same, and wanting to actually reach out and try to understand the community's cultures and values. Probably have different, materials with different languages. It's all, great. But I mean, how many of, is the industry really invested in this right now? I mean, I go out, I don't see flyers or material in Arabic, for example.
mhm,
I don't see that, the industry is investing or at least spending or funding any initiatives in terms of, community outreach, uh, or at least getting the community leaders or physicians, Arab speaking physicians, for example. And we have more than 1,000 of those in the Houston area coming from the Middle East, and they come here for rotations, residencies, and fellowship, you name it, and they end up staying here and they become US citizens. They're Arab speaking physicians. We can at least match these people with clinical trials using DCTs, MedVector, whatever, you name it. And then just like match them up with those American, the Arab American uh, population
mhm,
slash refugees. Lots of refugees. They have, language barriers. They have transportation barriers, access to healthcare. Um, and we have to try to include role models in this industry. There is no, yeah, this community lacks proper education, proper awareness about clinical research. We don't have staff or ambassadors or coordinators, for example, savvy enough about the culture and the value. Don't schedule something on a Friday. They want to go to mosque and pray. Okay, you know what I mean? Don't
mhm,
schedule something in Ramadan. They're fasting 20 or 18 to 20 hours a day. They're not gonna show up. You know what I
mhm,
mean? Uh, go to, mosques and church. We have a lot of churches, Middle Eastern churches here who cater for the Arab American communities in the Houston area alone. Go to these fairs, throw in a mobile clinic there, talk about clinical research, reach out to those, the Arab American community. There's a lot of things that we can actually plan on and, do. Yes, we need some funding, and this is where we all should probably come together and probably draft proposals. We need to write proposals and present them to the industry. Kindly
mhm,
ask them, we're here to serve you, whether as a vendor or whether as a community outreach program to serve those communities slash minorities, whatever you want to call them,
mhm,
and just like help us reach out to them, because we need to have this kind of inclusion in clinical trials, not because we just need to, just because we want to.
mhm,
It's really it's the bottom line. We need to increase generalizability and external validity of study results of all those clinical trials. How can you actually run a clinical trial without, I mean, as an Arab, I'm Lebanese originally,
mhm,
so I consider myself an Arab. Yes, under the US census right now, I should list myself as a white. Is it 100% scientific? It's not.
mhm,
Um, and that's why I was very vocal with the register, the proposal we submitted to the Federal Register recently, that we need to actually move the Middle Eastern and the North African, the MENA region, we call them, from the white category, because we need to have our own, category, because clinical trials have to have their own subgroup analysis to really
mhm,
run all those clinical trials and subgroup analysis, regarding MENA region. How can you actually just run all the analysis through the white category and give me a drug without even knowing that I'm genetically different? So anyway,
mhm.
all I'm trying to say is that there's a lot to be done.
Yeah, no, 100%. Thank you for bringing up those points. One thing, and I'm sure Judy like agrees with this, because I know Judy, you have an IMG with you at your clinic. I think that maybe one of the biggest things that the industry could do that would be the quickest is find a way to give these international medical graduates, whether they're from wherever in the world, right? South America, Mexico, or the other side of the world, I think it would be great because not only could you utilize that knowledge and skill set, but also, if you have more just American or English speaking physicians in a highly populated area, whether it's Arabs, Latinos, African Americans, or whatever it might be, if there is a language there that is needed to be addressed, you can input that international medical graduate, kind of like they do with, what do they call with rotations, like you said, link them, right? Find them
Right.
an actual place. And, I think that this industry, especially CROs and sponsors, they already have these doctors, these sites. I mean, they have communications with these physicians. They know if they're struggling to bring in certain, populations because maybe language barrier. Well, there you go. If you can
Right.
access international medical graduates, not only get them job, but ultimately, help influence the community, right? Be able to communicate with them effectively and ultimately be able to get, some other people there to communicate.
Right. I mean, it's
Mhm.
important to really, understand where those, this population or subpopulation is located, and probably try to throw in some sites, new clinics, using, those, public health clinics. I mean, that's a great idea. Why not? We all have to work together. And we are for the industry. We are, we want to work for the industry. We want to work with them. We're not here to just like, be a blocking or like a a blocking step towards the ultimate goal. So we all need to work together towards achieving this diversity that we've been talking about for years.
For sure. And we
Yeah.
actually, one of our
Oh,
members, Latinos by race are white or black, and by ethnic group, Latino or Hispanic, or when we are a lot like what you just said with the Muslim umbrella. So yeah, we agree. This is the exact same
And, and,
thing.
and to be honest with you, how many people understand that those subcategories within ethnicity and race and all these things that that we can find under the US 2020 right now? I mean,
Mm-mm.
hello.
Yeah.
So hopefully for the US 2030, we'll have more clarity. That's the hope right now.
right. Yeah, I think it's very important what you mentioned, especially in the communities where there is another language, there's an diverse community, but specifically different languages, that the industry doesn't invest a lot of money into educating that community, educating the physicians that work with these patients, get them into clinical research so they can share this information with their patients, because that is the way these patients are going to participate in clinical trials if they hear it from their physicians. I'm actually very interested. I know you mentioned there was a lot of physicians in these communities already that treat patients. How many of those actually work in clinical research that you know of?
Not a lot, and that's the problem. So most of these physicians are actually clustered around the Texas Medical Center here in the Houston area,
Mhm.
the Texas Medical Center here,
Mhm.
and our Arab American communities are actually in the west side of town. So
Mhm.
there's not a lot of invested linkages. Nobody's actually matching up these two resources together, and this is one of the things that we're working on. We're talking to grassroots organizations in the Houston area, at least to just like start raising awareness. Hey people, we have a lot of Arab speaking physicians here. Yes, they don't take the gold card. Yes, they're probably not gonna take the Medicare, but we don't care. We just want to match you up to see whether you're gonna be successfully screened for clinical trials down the road, and that's a big goal, right?
Right.
So we have a lot of we have a lot of issues that we have to actually go past them, but we need to be proactive in some
Right.
ways.
I mean,
Yeah.
honestly, if you have that many physicians and patients, really the ideal thing would be to see which out of those doctors would be really interested in research, get that one started, and then it's just a trickle effect after that.
Right, right.
And that's where it's going to start. But it is a grassroots effort. It does take a lot of
Exactly.
collaboration, a lot of talking to them, educating them, because even physicians aren't very familiar with clinical research
Yeah.
if they've never worked in the area.
You
Right.
said it very well, Judy. I mean, I know some of them who are
Mhm.
actually, involved in clinical trials right now, and they're part of MD Anderson Cancer Center in
Mhm.
oncology, for example,
Mhm.
clinical trials. But beyond that, I
Mhm.
mean, there's not a
They're
lot
not
of.
they're not
There's a,
aware.
No.
And I think it's
Right.
like the also the common misconception, not just in physicians, but for individuals, for example, like MAs, nurses that can technically be coordinators or medical office managers that can be coordinators. They, from what I've heard in the past and what I even thought, because I'm from a rural area, at the time when research was not prominent there at all in my location where I used to live, um, the idea was that if you did clinical research, it was solely academia. Like there
Mhm.
was no private, no site level, nothing like that. And so when I got into a hybrid site that was private and we did, research, clinical research, and it wasn't academia based, I was actually very surprised. It completely flew over my head that you could do that version of it. I always assumed one way or the other. And I do think that is a misconception, especially if when you talk about research, let's say medical school or any of the teachings, more than likely that's what they're bringing up. We've spoken to another organization, I forget the name, but it's for international medical graduates and it's global. And when we spoke about communicating research, I believe the founder, it was he wasn't aware that there was a difference either, that there's a difference between academia research and just having your own site and all of that. So definitely something that has to obviously be addressed as well. But yeah, there's really so much to do. And like you had mentioned, I do think that the consortium, and we'll be announcing more of that later to everybody,
Right,
but
right.
with all the organizations coming together, I do think that that kind of creating an all even stance about not just one ethnic group or this or that, we focus on all, right?
Yeah.
And maybe even for CEOs or sponsors, they're gonna maybe be focusing on one area of the US that is only predominant in these populations. Will come to the consortium, like we're all together, we can help you, right? And so I
Right.
do feel that that is one of the first baby steps of potentially, 5 years down the road, that there might be some real change.
It's a
Hopefully
collaborative
sooner,
approach.
hopefully sooner.
Hopefully sooner, but that's fine. 5 years is fine with me. I mean, things take time, and then it's a collaborative work. I mean, we all have to work together towards this common goal. And I'm just, thinking out loud right now. Um, why don't we just propose some kind of a subcommittee to just work on drafting proposals to the industry, just to invest and fund like seed money, just to fund those initiatives that we're actually talking about, reaching out to those communities, whether Latinos, whether African Americans, whether Sikhs, whether the Arab Americans, you name it. We need to have some proposals, like people writing proposals and presenting to the industry wherever we can get some funding.
Yeah, I think so. And it's going to take us that have this experience in these communities to come together and voice this and talk about this, because if we're not speaking now, if we're not coming together, if we're not proposing this, then a lot of people in the industry aren't very familiar, or they're not aware, or they think one size fits all when it comes to recruitment,
Right.
and when it doesn't. And so we also have to educate those out there. And as we come together with a different perspective and experiences, we're going to start to make this difference. But it needs to come from us and our group, not from somebody at the higher up who's never worked in our
I
communities.
totally agree. I think the intention is there. Let me
Right.
put it this way: the intention is there. They just don't know how to actually properly implement
Exactly.
it.
Right.
I'm putting this right. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? We just need to be more vocal and probably get our, efforts,
Mhm.
together and just, and trying to actually present this.
Right. Yeah, I
And I
definitely
use my hands a lot. I'm sorry.
I do that too. But yeah, I think I'm so excited to see there's more groups coming out like your group. I just, met you last week. And so I'm so excited that we're going to have these different voices. We're going to learn about each other's, cultures, and
Oh
when it
my,
comes to
yes.
patient recruitment and clinical research, and help educate the community and be able to recruit more patients, because in the end, as you mentioned, we need better medications that work on all patients, that are more effective, less side effects. And that's the point of clinical research, to be able to have that in the industry.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes, I totally.
100%. Something I do want to touch on, Dr. Danawi, because you had mentioned you're an epidemiologist. So before getting into the CRO side of research, I was actually clinical data specialist for hepatitis C with the Texas health department, specifically in infectious disease. And I worked with a bunch of epidemiologists, and I'm still very close friends with a lot of them. And there are quite a few that when I speak with them, when I tell them clinical research, they're like, well, what do you mean? Right. So, and a lot of them honestly would be so great for the industry, because they understand so many other aspects of population variance and all those kinds of things. And so I'm just curious, how did you kind of stumble into this? Was this something you were already fully aware of before you graduated as an epidemiologist, or how did that go about?
So I did my dissertation at MD Anderson.
Mhm.
And actually, my dissertation was in nosocomial infection in cancer patients. So I had to actually talk to some patients. I had to actually abstract some information from medical records. And I stumbled upon coordinators working on clinical trials back then. And I was like, this is interesting. I mean, yes, it's within the research, but I mean, it's within, but it's not. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I was like, my gosh, I love this. And so I graduated, I got into teaching, and I got into the pharma. And then I started as a pharmacovigilance, like drug safety, looking at the safety profiles of, the drugs basically. And I ventured into clinical trial with pharma. And then I felt so compelled in designing and developing clinical trials. Courses and clinical trials for online degrees like associates and master and clinical trials, and I'm the very few one, actually the first one, who actually proposed within my academic institution. I proposed this, degrees, like, we need to talk about clinical trials. I mean, we understand what epidemiology is about, we understand what public health is about. We need to create awareness and create a structured program in clinical trial. And I'm talking this happened 17, 16, 17, 18 years ago. I mean, we did not have a lot of programs, structured programs around clinical trials like we do today. So that was something, I ventured, and I was very proud of, probably, creating one of the first nationwide programs back then. And I'm like, it's something we need to invest in. My goodness. So I saw an opportunity whereby I can combine public health / epidemiology and clinical research, and try to create and raise this awareness within, the epidemiology world or public health world. And, I've been, vested and passionately involved ever since.
Amazing. Yeah,
Yeah,
we were
that's
we were just
great.
talking about that not too long ago. Judy just finished, or you're going through your master's, correct?
Yeah, so it's a master's in clinical advanced studies and clinical research through UCSD, but it's also a fairly new program. I believe it's less than 10 years old, and
Right.
I'm almost at the end of it. I have like a class left, but I
Amazing.
think it's amazing now that there's courses for people who want to,
Right.
pursue that, because
Right.
prior to that, I was a bio pre-med major. I didn't know anything about research. I stumbled into
See?
it by
See?
accident. So I wish I would have learned, because
Right.
maybe I would have decided to go at this path at a,
Exactly.
already. So I'm glad there's more out there, and that's amazing that you were able to be part of that at the school you were at.
Right.
But I actually wanted to add, one of my other IMGs that I actually have on staff is was an epidemiologist for the public health department in our community, and she worked there many years. Now she does like community outreach, and right now what she's doing is trying to connect us with physicians, organizations, because
Oh,
she had to
wow.
do that as an epidemiologist when they had
Oh,
to collect
great.
data in the community. So she's already very familiar with a lot of people, and so that's the skills. Plus, she's an international medical graduate. She actually many years ago worked in research and asthma clinical trial asthma studies.
Amazing.
So she has this whole background that she can bring in back into clinical research and do something on the community outreach,
Yeah.
try to get more referrals. So it's very interesting, that background and what she used to do, because she talks about collecting data, going to the hospitals, doing certain things with dogs, but kind of like research collecting, but on the public health side of it. So it is, I think there's definitely a lot of skills that you
Right.
guys have, that you can
Right.
do so many things in clinical research,
Right.
and we
And one of the
should,
things,
yeah,
right. And one of the things that I teach my students, I actually highlight the differences and distinctions between observational, non-interventional, and experimental / interventional studies. So, I mean, they have to become aware of what clinical research is about. And I bring in, like, examples, real life examples from the discipline. So yeah, this is very exciting to me.
yeah, that's great.
Pretty
I mean, you have
awesome.
such an amazing background. It's so, like, you've been so involved in the industry, and I think that even that perspective now, what you're trying to do is even going to be more valuable, because you're
Right.
going to reach so many people and
Right.
connect and collaborate with others.
I hope so. I'm trying to see really where the gap is. I do not want to reinvent the wheel.
Lots of gaps.
You and I, right, you and I and anybody else, we just need to collaborate on whatever we're
Right.
working on towards, this common great big goal. And I truly believe that we have a gap that we've identified, and we're truly working slowly but surely, but we're working towards that goal.
Right. Yeah,
I
it takes
agree.
time. It takes time. It takes a lot of people. Like you said, not just one person can do it. It takes a team collaboration. And so you're definitely going to get a lot of things done. Can't
Right.
wait to see
Yeah.
what you do.
I was just telling Dr. Danawi before we started, I'm so happy that LACR has multiple co-founders, because it really helps.
Yeah, it's a lot of work.
It is a lot of work. And I think on the sense that, well, we've been here, 3 years, and we've had a lot of communication, a lot of contact. But as far as the, the official confirmation of funding and all that, that's where it's been difficult. And so I feel coming together really will, speak miles to what it is that we're going to do.
Loudly. We
Yeah,
can
very
speak loudly.
loudly. Like,
Yeah,
okay, so if you don't hear one of us or two of us or three of us, you're gonna hear
right,
all of us now because,
right.
something's got to give, right?
Right, and I know the Dan and Dr. Fox
And
and
Brad
others
Hightower,
are involved in the SOS
Yeah.
Sacred
conference
Arts
coming up,
Mhm.
I think in
February.
February
Conference,
Mhm.
yes.
of
Where
this year.
LICR
Yeah.
is co-founding with them as well.
Right. I know that actually for as a matter of fact. Yeah. So I'm thinking, why don't we just like try to create something about around your board, my board, diversity. Talk about let's draft some proposals and bring in, be vocal, be very loud, and presenting this to the industry. It's like, hey, we're here. We need some seed money. We need some funding. We need to do something with our communities here.
Right.
Actually, that
Yeah,
sounds
I
really great.
agree.
We should
That's just an
actually,
idea.
yeah, we should have maybe like a round table for just
Right.
all the, I mean, obviously whoever
Yeah.
can show up, but just for us to come
Right.
together and openly
Mhm.
speak about the ideas. And I
Right.
mean, maybe at
And I'm
that
actually
point, whatever
planning to
we have
be
a
there to visit.
consortium.
So that's an opportunity for us to sit down and talk together. I'll be there hopefully.
Right. Yeah, and we're hoping, a lot of other people from the industry, sponsors, CROs, vendors will be there. So then putting everybody in the room and just having this discussion, and see what we can do in
So
person.
We
yeah,
have
it's
somebody
totally
raising their
different.
hand. I don't see your name, unfortunately, but would you like to get off the mic and speak?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. This is Patty Mendoza. How are you doing?
Hi,
Hi,
Patty.
Patty.
Hi.
Nice to meet
Glad
y'all.
you're here.
I'm from Houston too, so yay,
Oh,
you
hi.
too.
Oh, we need to
Hi.
connect then.
So I was wondering, the decentralized clinical trials. It is a draft guidance document. What's a thought about getting together and having a response? Now it would have to be quick because it has to be in by the beginning of or the end of August, I think. But having a well thought out discussion about what needs to be included. I'll tell you, I've been in clinical research for 32 years, and I'm constantly fighting the whole thing about, okay, by race, I'm Caucasian, but by ethnicity or by your thing, you want to call me white. But when I'm in the world walking around, I've been clearly reminded I'm not white. And I
I
don't
have
know.
the same issue.
Yeah, so it's so crazy because the numbers are so all over the place with how they count us. And so, I mean, I've said it over and over and over. So I would love for us or someone to come together. I don't mind speaking up. I do all the time. And I just went to a set, like back to my point is going the decentralized clinical trials draft. Here's an opportunity if you want to have yourself heard to get some names saying the all of us got together and we think this and this is from the Latino, the Muslim, the African American, Black, whatever group, and saying, this is what we think. Here are the points we need you to consider. Because I think you brought up some really good points about people forget sometimes about different people's heritage. And like I constantly am having to get on people when they start talking about Jesus. And I'm like, look, everybody has their God. Quit thinking everybody's is Jesus. Not that I have anything against Jesus, but I don't like that non-inclusion.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And so I really think we need to do. I also say the same thing about, I just went to a talk for Healthcare Compliance Association, and they were talking about having a work group with all these stakeholders. And I raised my hand up while the woman was talking and said, "Where's the IRS?" And she said, "Why would we need the IRS involved?" And I said, "Well, we have patients who go into trials. If they get paid over a certain amount, now they're getting quote unquote paid when we know they're not getting paid. The IRB is ensured that they're not getting paid." And I see patients when I'm an auditor now. I look at charts and I see that they were in a trial, and as long as they could, and finally they get kicked out because they've gotten too sick and they can't afford to be in the trial anymore. But yet they still have to pay taxes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hear you. Patty, please look me up on LinkedIn. It's my first name first name and last name. Look me up
I
and
will.
let's connect and talk in more details. Probably meet up for coffee in the Houston area. I live right next by the medical center, so that would be convenient if you're
Okay.
around. Yeah, but I know Dr. Fox and Brad Hightower.
Hightower. And Dan's fair. I
Now,
mean, we actually did. Was it this morning or yesterday? We did a. We did. It
Yes,
was yesterday. We
yesterday.
did. Yeah,
Yesterday.
we did a
Mhm.
podcast on the new DCT thing
DCT
that the
guideline, yeah.
Yeah.
FDA. Yeah, the
Guidance.
FDA passed. Sorry, apologies, my terminology right now.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, we talked about how, you know, none of the readings or what was showcased on what was passed, that LICR never got, you know, reached out to get asked about the community perspective, and Black women in clinical research either. And assuming the same for you, Dr. Danawi, that they, you know, didn't reach out to get
No,
their
no, I was just like, yeah, there it is. Okay, let's read it.
But it's a draft.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a
It's a
draft.
Right,
draft,
right.
which
It's
means
how
they are seeking response. That's how the administrative law gets set out. So right
Yeah.
now they're following the pathway they always do, which is they will put something out and say, now you have until X date to give comments back. And they do look at the comments, because I saw my comments included with HIPAA, and I saw it with OHRP. So I know they
Yeah.
will consider it. They just need to see
Yeah.
it.
Right.
It's a
Okay.
Yeah,
perfect
that's a good
opportunity
idea.
for us to get involved right now.
Yes.
Perfect opportunity and very timely right now.
Right.
So I know Dr. Fox and Brad and Dan, they're probably, interested in getting involved in this. And let's put it out there. Let's all work on that.
Yeah, I
for
think that's
sure.
a good idea. I think there's a lot we can put together, positive
Do we
feedback, and
know
hopefully it could be considered.
It's deadlines in August, correct?
I think she said the August, the end of August. Yeah, I
Yeah.
haven't looked into that,
Yeah.
but yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
I think-
So that
I
gives
think
us like
it's
2 months.
Perfect
Yeah,
thing
Yeah, it gives about
put
2
on our
months.
agenda and work on.
right.
Thank you so
Yeah,
much.
right.
definitely.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you
Definitely.
for letting us know about that.
If you can reach out to Dr. Danawi, but also send me a message on LinkedIn as well, and then I can reach out to the LICR team as a whole and try to see
Right.
what times and all that stuff work out, so we can maybe just put aside an hour or so. To
I
Okay,
kind of
love
talk.
Ashley, I was just going to say I'm involved with SOCRA, SOCRA and ACRP, and um, I have to think about each one of these, Magi and HCCA, and you name it, pretty
It's a
much
lot of
RAP,
A lot of them.
SQA. So I'm involved in it,
Gosh,
and
you're
I
busy,
keep.
Patty.
Well, it's more because when you audit, if you're going to go tell somebody their dress is too short, you'd better know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
It's more just preventative to protect myself. It's not because I think I know.
No,
But
but
I think this would be a great opportunity for all of us to have a say, because I feel the same way sometimes. I mean, every time when I was a coordinator, I would tell the sponsor, hey, your protocol, you know what the problem is? Here's the problem with this. And you know what? I started getting invited to the investigator meetings the day before to tell them what was wrong with the protocol and what was wrong with the EDC.
Oh, wow.
Perfect example of when you take initiative just to give your voice, and then people hear it, they want to involve you. That's awesome.
We have to be vocal.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Well,
exactly.
If you want to reach out to me, Patty, and also Dr. Danawi, like I said, we can figure out a time frame, and then once we get the time frame set with us, if you want to invite the other organizations as well. Well, if we have Brad Hightower, Dr. Fox,
I know.
Daniel, they're we're all with SOS, so that kind of works out as a whole too.
That would
So
be
yeah,
great.
and we can definitely do that way. So just reach out to us, and hey, this is really great. This
And
webinar not
believe
only
me, they
really
listen-
informative, but
Yeah.
more.
Yeah, and believe me, they listen to us because
Yeah.
Yes, most definitely. Well, thank you so much, Patty. I appreciate that.
Well,
Thank you.
I just wanted to say I really appreciate you talking about your background, because I go to a Unitarian. I'm a UU Catholic, so I don't know if you know what that is, but I'm a Unitarian Universalist. I go to that church, but I also go to Catholic church because that's how I was raised. And actually my mom is Jewish, so then I have that part. But my point is that I think that people don't think about all the people that they're around, and I'm also a nurse. So when you take care of patients, you have to be sensitive. And I think people forget that about lots of different things, age, background, what they're dealing with, all of that. And I think what you're talking about is critical, needs to be discussed. Just like there was somebody who got on and they talked about, I think they were a Jain, or I can't remember what Asian Indian background. And it was beautiful. But like at my church, they bring people to talk to people so they can go get over themselves.
Right.
Yeah.
I see where you're coming from. It makes perfect sense to me, and I'd love to connect with you more, more personally. Yes.
It's definitely through
Yeah.
the networking and everything. This is where it's
money.
at, honestly.
Mhm.
That's why I love his webinars. We're gonna
Yeah.
get more perspectives, and then you
Yeah.
know things just kind of flourish from it. So
And I'm very
yeah,
glad you brought this up. I mean, we're taking a different direction right now, but this is like ultimately, we need to work on this guidance.
Right.
most definitely.
Definitely.
Well, Dr.
Okay, my
Danawi,
daughter just jumped at me and she just wants to say hi.
Hello. Nice to meet you.
thank you.
My kids are here somewhere, but I closed the door. They're
I
cleaning
don't know
up.
how she opened the door.
I was
I
like,
locked
give
my
me an
door.
hour.
So Dr. Danawi, I do want to ask you, so I know that you said you're starting the organization, your baby steps, but is there a way that we can like help you plug anything that's coming up very soon, or ways that individuals can find you, just so that before we end the conversation today, I want to
So
make sure that they know everything about you.
you're amazing. Whatever you're doing is just beautiful, and thank you for inviting me to this podcast slash webinar, whatever you want to call it. So I'm trying to be very vocal and present on LinkedIn, and that's how I started. I started building lots of connection, beautiful, significant, meaningful connections over LinkedIn. And the sky is the limit, right? So whatever you can suggest, I'm game.
Sure. So I think when we do the post, obviously we're going to tag you on our LinkedIn post. So for those of you that would like to follow Dr. Janawi or communicate with him and help out his organization, whatever it might be, anything is great. Please go ahead and follow him and then reach out. He's very vocal. I wish I responded
Well,
fast enough to your
I
messages.
try. I
It's just
try.
so
And I
busy.
don't shy away from my accent, so it's okay.
So yes, anything or any way that you as a listener or watcher, if you can reach out, please go and show your support. We are here to give support to all
Right.
organizations, no discrimination whatsoever. We want to make sure that everybody gets
Definitely.
a platform and a foundation to be spoken about, right? And hopefully in the future, you guys will see a little bit more of LICR collaborating with Dr. Janawi and his organization.
I'd love to.
If you can please say the organization name, Dr. Janawi, I want to make sure that I'm not,
Yeah. Do you want me to type it in? It's Arab Board for Clinical Research.
the Arab Board for Clinical Research. That's always what I forget, the board part. That's what I wanted you to say. Is the Arab Board for Clinical Research, you guys. So, if you have do you have a website, Dr. Janawi?
Yes, and I'm writing this down right now as we speak.
Great. And that's on the LinkedIn page as well. So we will make sure we
Yes.
also share that with you guys on the post. Just please make sure that you follow us on LinkedIn, and you follow Dr. Janawi and Arab Board of Clinical Research on LinkedIn as well.
Right. And it takes a village, so we need to work together.
Most
Yes.
definitely.
Mhm.
Thank you. So I don't know, Judy or Patty, did y'all have any questions before we go ahead and end it for the day?
No, it was a very fascinating conversation. Thank you for sharing your background and everything that you're doing.
Of
And I'm looking
course.
forward, as I mentioned, to see what else you do. And I hope you
Thank
continue to
you.
connect with everybody that you
Thank
need to
you.
and continue to grow.
Of course, and thank you for ZU talking about my accent. Yes, whenever somebody makes fun of my accent, I tell them, hey, at least I speak Arabic, English, and French. So,
Right, there you
Wow.
go. More languages, honestly. I wish I had, an accent. I do not. But anyways.
I'll teach you some. Okay.
Yes. Awesome, you
Thank
guys.
you
Well,
so much. It's been a pleasure.
thank you, Dr.
Yes,
Now. I
thank
really
you.
appreciate it. Thank you, LSCR members. We will be posting this shortly, but thank you so much. Like, follow, share, subscribe to us on YouTube, follow us on LinkedIn, as well as Dr. Janawi and Arab Board in Clinical Research. And we will be here next month. Thanks, you guys.